Pod. Welcome back to another episode of Say Who Say Pod. He's Danny O'Neil in a sports coat. I'm Christian Caple. The regular season's over. The Washington Huskies are 8-4 after a 26-14 loss to the Oregon Ducks. We are recording this at 9:40 a.m. on Wednesday, and as of this very second, I believe all but 7 of the 2026 commitments that Washington's expecting to sign today on National Signing Day have indeed sent their letters, a group that does include 5-star modern-day offensive tackle Cody Green, 4-star Kennedy Catholic, edge rusher / defensive lineman Derek Coleman-Brusa, and a couple players who just committed to Washington in the last 24 hours or so. Jordan Clay, a 4-star receiver from San Antonio. Trez Davis, a 4-star receiver from Louisiana. Jordan Clay had been committed to Baylor. Trez Davis had been committed to Tulane. So a couple of late flips, Danny, filling out the receiver class. I know you're fired up. I know you're refreshing that browser.
Yeah. I will actually start learning some recruits' names now. Although I had a fair understanding of, I knew the offensive lineman from Mater Dei. I knew the defensive lineman from Kennedy. So now I can officially begin learning guys' names. My general rule, as advocated by Ian, is that you can know stars, position, and school prior to the actual affixing of a signature. That it's okay to say the 4-star safety from Bishop Gorman, for instance. But when you start advocating for names, or as if you know the actual player when you don't, the one exception would be if you've seen that player play live, then I believe you can mention his name.
Did you see that your guy Gavin Day became a top 100 prospect?
Yeah.
24/7 rankings.
Yeah, I did. I liked seeing that.
So you know Gavin Day. You're fired up for Gavin Day.
Sure. Yeah. Faith Lutheran, the safety that you showed, that was the guy we watched last year who was blowing people up, right?
Yeah.
I enjoyed him, though I then did have to go and look for the level of football he was playing there in Nevada. I was a little worried. He's Faith Lutheran. I was a little worried that it might be all slow guys, but no, he did some damage.
And your guy Brian Bonner as well. I had you watch Brian Bonner. You're fired. His as of right this moment, his letter's not in, but I think he has a ceremony at his school at Valencia High School a little bit later this morning. So there's no concern there or anything.
Yeah, I would say safety is probably my favorite position in football. Like, if you were going to say, like, what I veer toward, I love a big hitting safety. I love a fast safety. I just generally, I like safeties because I think it's the position that sort of affords the most freedom to make big splash plays on defense. It's maybe partly why I've liked Alex McLaughlin so much. He's a really fun player to watch. Makes every tackle he comes close to. Yeah, I like safeties.
8-4 in year 2 under Jed Fish. Well, actually, we should thank the folks who are making this episode possible first.
Heck yeah, let's get out to Chuck Olson.
Chuck Olson Kia, I believe, went undefeated again this year. Would have won the Big Ten.
A veritable juggernaut there in Shoreline.
Eternally undefeated. With a family-owned, locally owned dealership since 1964, owned by a family of University of Washington graduates with a friendly, low-pressure sales staff and a competitively priced selection of vehicles. We hope you will make Chuck Olson Kia in Shoreline your next vehicle buying destination. If you do, ask for our friend Henry Olson, and if you talk to Henry, let him know what you thought of Gavin Day's huddle tape. And also tell them that Say Who Say Pod sent you.
Say who? Say Pod.
This episode of Say Who Say Pod is also brought to you by our friends at Husky Mobile. Husky Mobile is partnered directly with the University of Washington to offer affordable phone plans for the Husky community with up to 7% of each bill going back to UW athletics. Subscribers can also enjoy game day perks like fast pass lanes, seat upgrades, and giveaways, all while on T-Mobile's nationwide 5G network. Use code ONMontlake. That's code ONMontlake at checkout, and Danny can spell it for you here in a minute. To get your first month free when transferring your number, thanks again to Husky Mobile for supporting today's show. Visit GoHuskyMobile.com to make the switch today. That's GoHuskyMobile.com.
I'm really grateful for our sponsors. I do want to say that it's been a huge step forward for the podcast this year. Maybe a bigger step forward than Washington took overall, though.
I feel like it's comparable.
Yeah, like there was a progressing toward certainly respectable, maybe even formidable, on the cusp of being formidable. That would be my subtitle for this Washington season. Like on the cusp of being formidable.
They're close to being a team that a team like Oregon or Ohio State doesn't really want to play. They're not quite there, and like maybe even that's not fair, because this was a 5-point game in the fourth quarter with Oregon facing a 3rd and 9 and the home crowd getting loud. And you could kind of see for a minute, like, okay, they just put together a touchdown drive. This looks like it could be a 3-and-out. They're one play away from making this a 3-and-out. If you get it back there, who knows, right? Like so it's not like they're stuck in the same place they were last year. They've clearly made progress.
Significant progress.
The question is, did they take a big enough step forward to make you feel like another one's in store next year? And did they take advantage of the opportunities they had to maybe be a little bit more competitive than they were? Because they had chances in this game. Like Oregon's better than them. I mean, still, I think that was obvious to anybody going into the game. I thought the game bore it out. I think that they eventually won with their athleticism, with their speed on defense. Washington really could not throw the ball in this game, though they ran it, I think, far better than probably anybody expected. So there were some pluses here for sure. You saw Washington's defense show up too in the run game in a way that really nobody has against Oregon this season. But it just never really quite felt like they truly had a chance to win the game. And you can point to the 64-yard touchdown to Malik Benson in the fourth quarter as like the perfect example. You're one play away from, for the first time in the final 3 quarters of this game, possessing the ball with a chance to tie or take the lead.
Yep.
Which they never wound up doing. They were just chasing, a little bit similar to Oregon's win over USC that way, where you could see some chances, you could see where the gap is closed, but this was still a game that Oregon was able to control pretty much throughout.
USC's offense did more against Oregon than Washington's offense did. Big picture, the biggest disappointment of a season where I do see clear progress was that in each of the 4 losses, Washington's offense really struggled. And I did not foresee that. If you'd told me, okay, these are the 4 games they're going to lose, would not have been a surprise. Now, it turned out that the loss at Wisconsin looked significantly worse once the season started going. But at the beginning of the year, here are the 4 losses. He's like, I would have thought 1 or 2 of those games were games where Washington's defense just couldn't stop them. And instead, it was in each of those 4 games, Washington did not score enough points to win. They just flat out, their offense did not play well enough to win. And they rallied at Maryland to prevent what would have been a 5th loss. And in that game, the offense looked terrible for the first 2 quarters. So that part, that observation of Washington's offense, really, it's got some progress that needs to be made against top tier competition. When they play substandard teams, they will hang 50 on you. They might even hang 70. But when you get up against teams with some hard hitting hombres, it gets a little tougher. I also thought you could see a difference in the level of speed and in some cases the physicality. I thought Oregon was a faster and in a couple instances clearly stronger team than Washington was.
And I think just the sign of kind of a mature program, if you will, a 4th-year head coach, a team that, obviously they got a lot of guys making plays on this roster who were not on the roster last year, but, a team that went undefeated through the Big Ten last year and won a conference championship and has lost 1 game this year, is they find ways to win. Even when the opponent takes away their strengths. So Oregon did not stop the run in this game, and they did not run the ball.
Yep.
And so what does Dante Moore do? He just goes out and makes a play every time they needed it. He was accurate. Like, if a guy had a step, the ball was exactly where it needed to be. They had him backed up, at the 4-yard line, I believe, on one possession, and then boom, explosive over Dylan Robinson's head on the outside. It's 3rd and 9. He finds Malik Benson against zone coverage over the middle and turns it into a touchdown. Their kicker goes 4 for 4 and makes a 51-yarder. Like, everything that they needed to do in the margins, like, okay, we're not going to be able to run the ball well on these guys. We're going to have to throw it. Fine. Play after play. Every time you get squeezed, every time you stall out, okay, this isn't going to be a touchdown, but we can put 3 points on the board reliably every time because we got a really good kicker. They've got a mature enough roster, a talented enough roster all around to find ways to make the winning plays that they need in the margins to not just win the game, but to stay in control really throughout the whole second half.
2 compliments that I'm going to provide, and then I'm going to say 3 things that really piss me off from this game. First, Dante Moore is a hell of a quarterback. And if he wants to go pro after this season, which I really hope he does, I think he'll be a top 5 pick. And I think that there'll be a question of if he comes back, it could redefine NIL valuation or whatever the hell we're going to call it going forward, because that I hope he declares. He is really good. Was able to move around. I think he's an incredibly accurate passer. I've been really impressed with him throughout this entire season. And Sadiq is one of the most dominant college tight ends I've ever seen in his ability to block, and it appears like he really enjoys blocking and then play as a wide receiver. Like, he looks like a stud. 3 things that really pissed me off in this game. Number 1, the kicker celebrating the 51-yard kick, turning to the student section at UW. Nope. Kickers, I acknowledge the value of kickers. I hate celebrating kickers. Number 2, the offensive lineman who made the move of blocking Ephesians Prysock into the out of bounds, into the boundary. Because if you're going to do that, don't do it against a DB. Like, nobody should think an offensive lineman is tough because of what they do to a defensive back. That's number 2. And then number 3, I was furious at that replay review on Denzel Boston's catch. I thought that was crap. That they did not give him the first down there. I'm still half of a mind to get Hugh Millen, a tire jack, out at Mount Si High School to explain perspective and how those things work. That infuriated me.
Related but unrelated. Did it seem like spotting the ball was an issue for officiating crews all season?
Yeah.
I just feel like there were more kind of strange, like, well, that's a yard too far, or that's a yard too short. Yes. How'd you miss it that badly? No, his knee was down here. And obviously you're not going to review every single one of those, but it just seemed like a season of bad spots one way or the other, either for or against Washington. I don't know if that's maybe it was just there were a few that were like glaring examples, so it seemed like it was worse than it was. But on the officiating, I mean, it cracks me up because every time a bad call happens in one of these games, either way, you get people saying, what is this, the Pac-12? I thought we left the Pac-12. Like, hey, where do you think those Pac-12 refs all went? They didn't just retire. There's still games being played. There's still games that need to be officiated. There's a bunch of them in the Big Ten. There were a bunch of them left for the Big Ten even before the Pac-12 disintegrated. Like, that had been a problem. So
yeah.
There's more often than not, you see some funky stuff and you look up and it's like, okay, I've seen this referee before. This is a Pac-12 ref.
Yeah. What did you think of the review on the Duck receiver's one-handed catch that he pinned against his helmet?
Yeah, that was tough. I think if they called that a catch on the field, you can't overturn it and call it incomplete. It's the whole issue of like, the ball can hit the ground if you are firmly in control of it, which he might have been. Like, he had it pinned to his head. And then I don't know that it necessarily moved.
It looked like a spun a little bit, but then I'm like,
So that's why you can't overturn it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable play.
I know. It was. I was pretty impressed with that play.
So I don't like it. I picked an 11-point Oregon win. They won by 12.
Woo!
Maybe
Woo!
no. Well, the point is that like this wound up being a very predictable season for Washington. And I don't know that you would take that and say, oh, like that means that they're behind schedule or whatever. I think they are at least on schedule. And I think an argument can be made that based on where the roster was when Jed Fish and his staff got here, that they're ahead of schedule, that there are probably some coaching staffs that probably could not have got this team to 8-4 this year. But the fact is, Illinois was far and away the best team they beat.
Yep.
And the Wisconsin game was a dud. They'd like to have that one back. Honestly, if they just find a way to win that game, even ugly, even 16-13, 14-13, whatever, one extra point, like find a way to win it and you're 9-3. I don't think anybody can say anything other than like things are going swimmingly for Jed Fish at Washington, especially combined with this recruiting class they're going to sign today. I think it's ranked 13th in the 24/7 Sports Composite right now. So I don't like the arrow's pointing up. It's just a matter of like, is it pointing up enough for your liking relative to what their opportunities were this year in some of these games they lost?
One of the things that impacts how you feel about it is Oregon's trajectory, like as a Washington fan. And this might make some people mad. Clearly, I look at Oregon as a pure program. Like that in my soul is how I feel. And a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the prospective payouts from the Big Ten equity deal, which looks like it's not going to happen, but the fact that Oregon was going to get a significantly higher share, I had a visceral reaction to, wait a minute, why are they getting more? They came in at the same time as Washington. I'll acknowledge that UCLA and USC get higher share of the full broadcasting thing because they left. The reality is that Oregon is the program that has taken the biggest step forward in the move to the Big Ten, not USC. And that's probably going to color how some of this feels. And you probably need to get over it. And I'm speaking to myself as much as to anyone else. Like I probably need to get over using Oregon as some sort of benchmark for how Washington is doing, because whether it's resources for players, whether it's facilities, right now, Oregon is operating at a different level that Washington is. And I'm not sure if that's going to change in the near future. So because I've kind of been sitting here thinking about this over the weekend. I wasn't as mad as I've been at previous losses to Oregon, and I felt like Washington played pretty well and that their defense really hung in there. They ran the ball and they stopped the run pretty well. But I also came away from it looking like there's Oregon is one of the teams that has a gap between Washington and Oregon, and maybe people laugh thinking that I'm just slow now cluing into this, and this has been the case for 20 years. But there does feel to be a qualitative difference between the programs.
Are you saying Washington needs to run its own race?
A little bit, or to stop looking at as well, you need to get someone in here that can beat Oregon in 3 straight games, like that sort of feeling, or Chris Peterson's the one that set everything right. And it's like things right now, the way college football is shaped up, it looks like Oregon has a coach who is not eyeing any other programs. And that's not something that Washington had in Kalen DeBoer, or I believe will have in Jed Fish. And Oregon does have they have a resource advantage right now. And the fact is that when you look at, yes, Washington's got a good recruiting class, but not just Oregon's recruiting class, but even the transfers it brings in, it's just a different level.
Yeah, and, like we saw in 2022 and 2023, those recruiting ranking differences, those resource differences, even maybe an overall talent gap, 1 through 85, can be overcome, right?
For sure.
Development and scheming and game planning and all those sort of things. I think that, like, just kind of gauging reactions from Husky fans after this game, that seems to be the biggest disappointment. Not what Oregon looked like athletically compared to what Washington looked like athletically. Clearly, there's still a difference there, but we all know what it looked like in Eugene last year, and it didn't look like that. So, like, I don't think anyone expected them to be Oregon's, like, athletic equal in this game for 60 minutes. I think what has people frustrated is that maybe there were some opportunities to maintain contact in this game, or to rely a little bit more on Adam Mohammed, who is carrying the ball 14 times for 105 yards. You're still giving it to Jonah Coleman 9 times. I don't get in, I honestly don't get into the why'd you throw the ball twice on possessions in the third quarter when you could have ran it type of thing. Like, again, we talk about this, right? The play calling criticism. I don't really go along with that. And it's not to defend Jedd Fisch's play calling. It's just an acknowledgement that, like, what do we know? Like, they know the strengths and weaknesses of every player on the field for both teams, both skill wise and relative to their current health, all those things. They know tendencies. They've tracked it, charted it, right? They've spent a lot more time on this than anybody sitting in the stadium watching and saying, oh, why'd they throw it? They should have ran it. Certain circumstances, sure, maybe it's like a can't see the forest for the trees thing, and if you just zoom out and do the common sense thing, you do opposite of what you called. But I don't know. Does it frustrate you as much as it seems to frustrate a lot of people that the head coach is calling the plays and that's somehow holding them back?
I don't think that's the case. I don't even think I was puzzled. I was frustrated by the usage that you just mentioned. I didn't think Jonah Coleman should get as many carries in the second half as he did. Like, that was my straightforward observation. And in the past, I've talked about, hey, it's great that he gives guys the opportunities he promises them. I thought that this was an example of taking that too far. Play your best players. Give your best players the opportunities, right? And if a guy needs a break, then but Adam Mohammed was clearly their most effective running back in this game. And the only time they should have given carries to someone other than him in the second half was when he was too tired to run it. That's my opinion. I was frustrated by that. I think my other frustration doesn't have anything to do with Jedd Fisch, and frustration is probably the wrong word. I think that Damon Williams has a really hard time when he can't run. Like, when he's either aware of someone spying on him or he knows there's too much speed, that I think he gets caught a little bit, thinking he's going to run, then knowing that he can't run, and then trying, like, that's his next step. But the run pass distribution was not something that bothered me this game. And I generally tend to think that coaches have an approach. I have not thought that Jedd is someone who sort of, his stubbornness in play calling is something that gets him in trouble. I haven't tended to notice that.
So that's the other side of this. I pointed out, it's obvious to anybody who's watched this year, like, Damon Williams Jr. has not played his best games against their toughest opponents. Breaking news, right? It's probably how you would expect it to go. Against good defenses, his numbers aren't as good. Probably has something to do with the defenses he's playing.
Yes.
How much of this, I think he's 15 for 30 in this game, 129 yards. I don't know if it's an issue of guys not getting open. Is he not seeing guys? I think Jedd Fisch talked about Oregon playing a little more coverage earlier and wanting Damon to recognize that and check down a little bit more and sort of take what's given. There was the interception to Boston.
Yes.
Fisch kind of went back and forth between, hey, he had Raiden Vinesbright open on a check down. We'd love him to hit that. But also, he said, like, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 quarterbacks are going to throw the ball when they see a linebacker on Denzel Boston, and maybe not assume that a safety is going to make a play on the ball like Kennedy did there. It was a nice play. But more than that, is this just what it's going to look like for a sophomore, 19-year-old starting quarterback going against big physical elite defenses behind what is still, I think, an offensive line that's a work in progress? Obviously, they're much better. They're in a much better place now than they were a year ago. I think that, assuming retention, they're going to be in a much better place next year than they were this year with John Mills coming back. Champ Taleolea will be a year older. You've got Landon Hatchett coming back. Drew Azzopardi presumably coming back after a big year. You're adding Cody Green to the mix. Some of the guys who didn't play will be a year older. You've got some depth there. You at least should be starting to have some depth there. Is some of this just like the growing pains we talked about before the season that you're going to have to accept from, I know he started 2 games last year, but a first-time full season starter who's still a sophomore, or is it symptomatic of some bigger flaws within Damon Williams Jr.'s game that they're going to have to address going forward? I kind of lean the former until we get data to suggest that no, this is just who he is, no matter how many games he's played. I think some of it's a learning experience. I don't think he got worse as the year went along. I think he got better, in fact, at certain things. He got better at picking his spots, running the ball. Mm-hmm. I know some people pointed out in this game, like, well, he held onto the ball too long, or he wasn't super decisive. Fish did talk about they were spying him, and I think would have been fine with him scrambling for that reason. So I think the play was to try to stay in the pocket and hang in the pocket because there probably wasn't a lot to be had outside the pocket. A few times he got out. He did make something happen, but I don't know. I think it's I think there's a lot more good than bad for Damon Williams in year 1 as a starter. The next hill is, not necessarily even like helping the team win these kind of games. Obviously, that's going to be the expectation, but you're playing in a way and leading the offense in a way where they have a chance. Because you're right, it's been the offense that's held them back in these games.
I went and did a breakdown of the numbers, and I mean, like it's not a surprise. In their 8 wins, I think they scored more than 35 points 7 of those 8 games, and in the 4 losses, the most they scored was 14. I think it was 14, 10, 7, and 6. Now, they did score more in each successive loss. So it was 6 against Ohio State, 7 against Michigan, 10 against Wisconsin, and then 14. So you see progress in that way. No. I agree with everything you just said about Damon. I think he's a great quarterback. The number one reason that I hoped that Jedd Fisch did not leave or did not get one of those jobs that wanted Jedd Fisch back is because I want to see what next season looks like with Damon Williams. Be greedy and think of the next 2 years. I think he's really good. I do think that there is something of an adjustment that he's going to need to make in how he approaches playing really good defenses. They rely an awful lot on him. Because he is a significant part of the run game as well. That is part of their rushing offense is him running, not just scrambling, but running. So all of those, I believe that I love having him as a quarterback. I think he's one of the things that I feel best about Washington going forward. That question of how to help him out or how to make a scheme give him those options, because you saw Boston with a linebacker on him, and maybe the linebacker cleared a little bit of space, like preventing him from coming back to the ball, but that was also a shot. There was safety help and the safety got there. It wasn't that him taking that shot in that situation. That was the turning point in the game. And it's not like Washington didn't have any chances after that, but that was their chance to get in control early. And it was an aggressive gamble that backfired.
I think that's maybe the most disappointing thing about some of their offensive shortcomings in these games. And really, I'm really just thinking of Oregon and Michigan, is that turnovers were killer. Well, excuse me, Wisconsin too. Mm-hmm. Wisconsin, you throw one of your interceptions on first down, on a play that really doesn't have a chance. Another example of like, hey, just find the check down, right? Now, on one of your few drives where you actually are on the opponent's side of the field with a chance to score some points. And frankly, if they go down and score a touchdown in that situation, the game's probably over. I think they were up 10-3. I think it was late in the second quarter, if I remember right. Wisconsin's not coming back from a 17-3 deficit in that game. even with the 10-3 deficit that they faced at halftime, Washington still could have won that game without scoring again, but they give it to them on the 7-yard line because of a fumble deep in their territory on a play where nothing was going to happen. Just bury that thing, right? Tuck it and fall and punt. So that was a killer fumble. Obviously, like, it's a tie game at the Big House with a minute and a half left in the third quarter, minute 40 left in the third quarter. And boom, boom, interception, couple touchdowns, and the game's over.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then again here, the late interception was whatever. Game was pretty much over then anyway. But yeah, I mean, you throw a pick down 3-0 on first down at the 21-yard line. On a play where, like, I don't think that's an unforgivable decision, but it's, maybe a decision that a junior Damon Williams, that a senior Damon Williams doesn't make.
It's a decision you don't have to make. And I tend to group football games into different categories. There are games that, hey, it's a long shot. You're going to have a really hard time winning this game. You can play this game 100 times and you're going to win 10 of them, like that sort of thing. I honestly think Ohio State was in that category this year, but that was the only one. And maybe even that one is overstated because it was more competitive in the second half. I just felt like Ohio State wasn't asking its quarterback to do too much. And when he did get a little bit of rope, like, he cut him apart. But last year, there were clearly games like that. Oregon game was like that. Penn State game was like that. You just saw games where it's like there's a clear talent difference here. Indiana was like that. At least the second half. Iowa, like the gaps that you saw when Washington got beat, it just got physically beat up. Then there are the games that could go either way. And I feel like Washington was in 5 of those games this year and even one of them, the comeback against Maryland, they didn't make plays late. They didn't make the plays or the crucial plays that could have swung the feeling, the momentum or the trajectory of that game. And this is one of those. The defense played well enough to give Washington a shot, forcing the field goals that they did. I thought Washington's defense over the course of this year, I thought it improved. I thought that they were always pretty good about not giving up big plays and that they kept them in games. And that next step is learning to be a more effective offense. Like, that's more effective offense against really good opponents. And that means not getting greedy. And it means, like, there might be some points where you have to be really aggressive, but the first half interception by Damon was one of those, you didn't have to make that throw. Like, there was, you're still in great position to pick up the first down, even if you just spike it into the dirt. You're in the right half of the field. You didn't need to take that shot there, and that's a learning experience.
I gotta say, I didn't think we'd be 33 minutes into this episode, like a week ago, like the post-Oregon episode, the post-regular season episode, with no mention of the coaching carousel or Jedd Fisch.
Yeah. What do you make?
What do you make? Kind of went
it?
away pretty quickly, did it not?
Yeah. What do you make of it?
Well, I think Florida probably favored John Summerall. If it couldn't get Lane Kiffin, it seemed like that was probably going to be where they pivoted to.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on who you read, certain sources I trust with coaching carousel stuff, Bruce Feldman at The Athletic, for example. I don't think really toward the end, at least, the very beginning, the day that Billy Napier is fired and candidates who get mentioned, then it's a different thing.
Right.
It didn't really involve Fisch's name a whole lot toward the very end. I've seen reporting that suggested they interviewed a dozen candidates or something like that. I don't know how accurate that is, but if they did, it'd be hard to imagine that, Jedd Fisch wasn't one of them, but we have no idea, right? Like that. So it never felt imminent or like a coin flip or anything like that. It just kind of felt like, okay, he's one of 3 or 4 names you're going to hear circulating for this job once you know that they're not getting Lane Kiffin. But John Summerall kind of came to the fore pretty quickly. And we really, other than UCLA, which I think momentum really fizzled on that rumor a couple weeks back, It kind of seemed like those were the only two even remote possibilities, and once those closed up, With that said, Penn State still hasn't figured out who they're going to hire. So
I'll eat my hat if he ends up at Penn State. Like I will,
yeah,
I will physically on screen devour my hat.
I don't say that to suggest there's like a
no, but I agree. I mean, you
possibility.
Can't,
I'm just throwing it out there.
Through. The other part that's interesting about it, though, is that usually when you know a coach was an actual candidate is when an extension gets announced, right? And there hasn't been an extension either. And there could be a variety of reasons for that. But at the very least, you would say that either Washington isn't really serious about signing him to an extension, or he's not really interested in some sort of improvement to the deal that might make it harder for him to leave a year from now. And it's an interesting spot that Washington is in. I find myself my preferred outcome is that he goes into next year on the deal he's on. That is what I think would be best. That also would probably raise the possibility or likelihood that he leave a year from now if that contract's not changed. And I'm willing to take that sort of gamble or risk. I do think that they could and maybe should be in position to contend for a playoff berth next year. So I don't know. I found myself thinking about it that, yeah, he really wasn't mentioned. There weren't any sort of like sweating it out. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
Well, it's up to you whether you believe Lane Kiffin or not when he says that he did not ask his agent, Jimmy Sexton, for the financial details of his contract, but only for the money allotted to players.
It's, of all of the BS that he's spun, that's probably the closest that I would say to being true, because I think he knew Jimmy was taking care of him, like of all the uncertainties. He didn't have any doubt about what the average annual revenue from that was going to be, or he knew that Jimmy was going to take a chunk out of him. Dude, the Lane thing is one of the funniest sagas ever. There is nothing in Lane Kiffin's history, nothing that suggested he wasn't going to do exactly what he did. Like, there's no anything that you would say of like, oh, I thought he'd really found a home in Ole Miss. Like, that is sports writing narratives being imposed on. There is nothing that dude has ever done that has not been overwhelmingly selfish in a professional sense.
You sign up for Lane Kiffin, you sign up for whatever comes.
And all of the messiness that goes along with it. Also, the On3 reporter who called him a hoe on the radio, like, that kid deserved to get yelled at. Like, that was the other thing. Somebody, maybe the kid himself said, and he's probably in his 20s, said that Lane called him and apologized. I was like, why? Like, you call someone a hoe on the radio, I would fully expect if I see that person's going to yell at me.
The funniest part of this is everybody categorizing him as a kid. I didn't know anything about him until all this happened. I was watching like kind of his first podcast after the incident, sort of talking about it. He's 40 years old.
No, I saw a picture of him. Really?
Yeah, he just has a young face. Some people have a young face. I will say, and I don't disagree with you about, like, you're never going to hear me use that word in a professional setting about someone I cover. But setting that aside, the reaction of like, oh, look at him, you can see his soul leave his body. Look at him, he's going to pee his pants and all that. I'm like, what? He's just standing there with a face. Like, yes. What do you want him to do? Like, what should he have done? He's just a guy standing there. Like, yeah, I get it. People are going to make it that, whether, no matter what the reaction is. But like, what, should he have punched him? Like,
no, I didn't think he handled it poorly. I just thought it was funny that everybody, like, yeah, that's the reaction you should expect to get yelled at if you, I think it was when he was talking about it. like later. It was like, oh, wasn't it crazy? And it's like, no, it's actually not crazy at all that you call someone a hoe when that person yells at you.
I think the bigger issue there was he was citing a Ludacris lyric, and I couldn't figure this out. Did it come first from Ludacris or did it come first from Dr. Dre?
What's the Dr. Dre lyric?
Well, Dr. Dre has a song on it's Dr. Dre and Hitman actually on his album 2001 called Housewife, in which the chorus repeats that line.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't know. Maybe that was maybe Ludacris got there first. I believe both songs were released in 1999, so it's a tough thing to determine, I guess.
I was thinking back to I believe it is Ice Cube in one of the first great diss tracks titled "No Vaseline" off his Death Certificate album, who referred to saying something to Eazy-E a year ago, but Willie D told me to let a hoe be a hoe, which that was what I always thought of. Man, what a crazy thing. I also saw the website Awful Announcing had a story about Lane Kiffin said that Nick Saban had advised him about LSU. Yeah. And Awful Announcing said that that's a clear conflict of interest. I was like,
we're worried about conflicts of interest now.
Whoa, what? A conflict of interest on ESPN's College Game Day? I never.
Oh, incredible.
No way. Oh,
I thought they were giving it to us straight this whole time.
Do you think Ole Miss should let him coach?
No.
Yeah,
no. Like, are you kidding me? My favorite part of the threat, or the reported threat of like, let me coach the team or I'll poach people, is like, oh, because you totally wouldn't do that anyway. We would definitely trust that wouldn't happen anyway. Come on. No team in their right mind, no school, and the people throwing out the comparison. Tulane's letting John Summerall continue. North Texas is letting Eric Morris continue. Yeah, they're not in the same league. They're not competing for the same recruits.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're going to bring some guys with them as transfers, but a couple, Yeah, Lane Kiffin in the building at Ole Miss recruiting for LSU. What are you like? No, God, who in their right mind would allow that?
The other thing was, this is the same guy that Nick Saban fired because he thought he was too focused on his job at Florida Atlantic when he was the Alabama offensive coordinator.
Based on
documented history of this,
based on their offensive performance against Washington in the semifinal. I remember asking Lane Kiffin a couple of questions during media availability before that game, and attending a couple of his press conferences. And somebody asked him is working for Nick Saban fun, or is working at Alabama fun? And he was like, well, he kind of laughed. He's like, I wouldn't call it fun. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's great experience and he's the best and you're going to be better for it and all these things. Even then it's this is kind of a different degree of candor than you're used to.
He's just got a level of smugness. He did one of my best heckles ever was at him. It was when the Huskies played USC at Seahawks Stadium, and he was wearing, I remember clearly, he was wearing an all white, baggy sweatsuit with a visor.
That's his thing.
Yeah.
The white hoodie.
And when they came out, it was one of those where I don't know if there was a little bit of a lull of a sound in the sound, but I screamed, and it was loud enough that he had to have heard it, dress like an adult, and kind of everybody around kind of stopped, and I was like, yeah, that one landed. That was a decent heckle.
He's gonna tweet at you 15 years from now.
Then I'll pee my pants.
Anyway, whether you believe that he didn't know his compensation or not, I think the spirit of that comment should resonate, and I think should resonate at Washington, where when we talk about the possibility of a Jedfish extension, do you extend him? Do you not? Is it more about just giving him a raise? Do you feel compelled to do that when he's got 5 years left on his deal and you might not be competing against any external offers right now? Maybe you want to head off and set all that aside. Like, I think Jed Fish would say more important than a contract extension or a raise or a new deal is some sort of assurance of roster investment. And what that means really is some sort of assurance of third-party NIL, because everybody knows what their revenue share figure is. Everybody's going to max it out. Everybody, Big Ten, SEC, roughly is going to be paying the same. We've talked about this, right? That's just the baseline, and the differentiator is going to be how much third-party NIL can you bring, how much real NIL can you bring on top of that. LSU reportedly told Lane Kiffin he'd be getting upwards of $25 million in roster investment, which suggests upwards of $10 million in third-party NIL, which is interesting to me because you're not supposed to be able to guarantee any of that. You're not supposed to be able to guarantee third-party NIL to players. So is the you're not supposed to be able to guarantee going to become the new you're not supposed to use NIL as an inducement, which was a rule that nobody followed, that nobody enforced? Or because do you put that in writing? Like if a coach says, hey, I want to take this other job, but I'll stay if you can guarantee me some sort of, roster investment over the cap, so to speak. Do you put that in writing that, yes, we will cheat. We will do this thing that is prohibited by rule and guarantee. Or if you can get enough legitimate, businesses or groups or whatever, marketing groups to guarantee a certain cash sum, can you guarantee, generally speaking, to the coach that hey, we will secure X dollars in third-party NIL, and that's okay, but it's not okay to tell a player specifically, we will get you this deal with Adidas for this money? That's what I'm interested to see. Do these, because obviously, every coach is going to want to know, what's the budget? What do you have to spend? House money, okay, great. We're in the Big Ten, we're in the SEC. I know what that number is going to be. What's the third-party number going to be? Every coach is going to want to know. Is that just going to be like a handshake verbal thing? Or is that something we're going to see actually put in writing?
Can't imagine they would be able to put it in writing. If you're not supposed to be able to do that, it's hard for me to imagine it put in writing. However, in previous experience, this isn't a salary cap situation, but it's somewhat akin to that. You have seen instances in the past where deals that are against the rules have been put in writing and end up coming back to bite people. Specifically, it happened in the NBA with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Joe Smith. And Minnesota made a clear promise about a level of an extension, which was forbidden. And I remember people saying there's no way that any team's going to be stupid enough to put this in writing. And lo and behold, the Timberwolves and their owner, Glenn Taylor, were. And they got found, they lost draft picks because of it. And ended up, I think, not being able to re-sign Joe Smith because of it. But everybody's just making it up as they go along. Isn't that what's clear is happening? And because Lane Kiffin speaks with the degree of candor, I think earlier this year he was asked what $500,000 will buy you for a player, and he said half of one of LSU's cornerbacks.
Awesome.
That was an actual exchange. I mean, I don't even know how you begin to police this sort of stuff if you're the NCAA.
Well, and now the participation agreement that everyone's supposed to sign, everyone hasn't signed, and today was the deadline. Texas Tech very publicly said that it wouldn't be signing it because it would be signing away the right to sue over future rule modifications or new rules that the CSC might add that nobody even knows exist yet. No one could know exist yet. And so you'd be agreeing not to sue over those rules that aren't even in place yet. And so that's their justification for it. I think the bigger issue schools are going to have is well, why would we give away our ability to contest in court if you tell us we can't pay our left tackle $800,000 for doing 2 autograph signings and a judge agrees that that's legal and that you shouldn't be policing that? Why would we give away that right? There haven't been any lawsuits yet that I know of, but that participation agreement was seen as a key thing, and it seems like there's still. I think Washington indicated it was cool signing it. Speaking of Washington, are people aware that Washington's athletic director once hired Lane Kiffin as his head coach?
Yeah, man, Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, so I don't think there were too many hard feelings when he left Florida Atlantic for Ole Miss, but it's a little bit different. A little bit different than this time around.
Gives you an indication of the sort of aggressiveness that Pat Chun is willing to engage in, however, I would say. Like that he's not someone that is afraid of those sort of personalities or making those sort of gambles.
IP has an interesting coaching carousel question for us.
He does. Our conversation with IP McFarland from IPMcFarland.com.
Good morning, guys. Tough loss. I didn't think that the fourth quarter breakdown was the key to the game. I thought the key play of the game was DeMond's first half interception, which you will notice happened on second and short. If Jed would have just listened to me, he would know that you never get aggressive on second and short. You always run between the tackles. All you have to do is listen to the podcast. We're answering questions for you all day, Jed. Just listen to us. The other big news of the week is, of course, National Signing Day, which Danny, I have no doubt, is breaking down in rich detail. I'm recording before the actual signings, but knock on wood, it looks like Washington got a safety who wears a bucket hat. I don't ask for much in a recruiting class, just safeties that wear bucket hats, so kudos. The other big story in college football over the weekend was, of course, Black Sunday. Lots of major firings, lots of major hirings, but one seemed to catch everybody's attention. There is one hire that everybody is talking about, everybody is prognosticating on, and thinking about all the implications of it, and that's, of course, JaMarcus Shephard getting hired at Oregon State. My question is whether this hire is going to work, but I do have some commentary, and I love it. I really loved it. As soon as I saw it, I was giddy, and there's three reasons. One, I feel sympathy probably actually for Washington State and Oregon State, and Oregon State is just the saddest program in the country right now, and bringing in the happiest coach in the country has to be a good thing. Second, he can recruit his tail off, and there's going to be some 3-star linebacker out of the state of Oregon that Lanning wants as his 20th guy, and he loses him because Shep just out-recruited him, and I'm going to find that really funny. But the big one is that his two biggest rivals are now Oregon and Washington State. He already knows how to hate those teams, and he's going to ignite that fan base. And if we look at our lives at the bullies, like the cool guy bullies, which Dan Lanning checks every box of, that we've had to deal with, and we look at the people who overcame the most, the people that are most invincible to bullies are people that laugh in their face. And I cannot wait for JaMarcus Shepard to pull some BS Ryan Grubb, Kalen DeBoer play call out of his tail and confuse the hell out of Dan Lanning and laugh the entire time. It will bring me so much joy. But my question is, does it work? Is JaMarcus Shepard either on to a bigger and better job or coaching a successful Oregon State team within the next, 4 years? Hope you guys have a good week. Go Dogs.
JaMarcus Shepard is one of the assistants that I have an inexplicable affinity toward. Like, you talked to him, so you would have like more of a background. I always just loved the dude. It seemed like players really liked playing for him. I thought the development that they had from wide receivers was great. I really liked him, and am rooting for him with Oregon State. I think the question becomes, what is success at Oregon State, Washington State? It'll be a little bit different next year when you get an actual conference together, and Jim Mora's in that conference now at Colorado State. Like, I think that will help. But that question of what success looks like, I do think that that's changing.
I promised to check in, and now that he's a head coach, it'll happen at some point. But I promised to check in here the very first time I encounter someone who does not like JaMarcus Shepard, because it hasn't happened yet. I don't anticipate that there will be it'll be too frequent of an occurrence. But he's the head coach of a college football team now, so he'll have detractors at some point, surely. As universally beloved of a coach I've ever been around, I mean, in terms of immediately winning over his position group, knocking his interview out of the park with Washington. As the story goes, he met with Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk, I think, during his job interview. And they effectively interviewed him and, came away, I think, feeling like, yep, this is the guy. I think he also interviewed at Notre Dame during that cycle, if I remember right, came from Purdue. So every single thing you want in a leader, right? Just I describe, he's a 1%er energy, enthusiasm. He could connect with anybody, right? I mean, he grew up in poverty in Indiana, was a good student who went to college, played D3 football, the absolute opposite of a silver spoon rise through the coaching ranks. He's been everywhere. He's become a position coach, I mean, I guess the one thing you'd say is he hasn't been a coordinator. Don't believe he's called plays. But that never really felt like a requirement for him to become a head coach. I remember hearing that there were smaller schools showing head coach interest in him ahead of the 2023 season, coming out of 2022. I think there was a decision to be made for him then on, do I want to see this thing through with this team that I think could very well contend for a national championship. I think there were some opportunities for him then. It sounds like, if I remember correctly, I believe Nick Saban was trying to hire him as Alabama's receivers coach, like just before he decided to resign. And of course, he wound up going there anyway with Kalen DeBoer. He's been around a couple different programs that, during this ramped up NIL era and now the revenue share era, that do it a little bit differently, right? Because Washington doesn't have exactly the same resources that Alabama has. So he got to see, hey, how did Washington go about retaining its roster and managing its budget ahead of 2023, which I think required a lot more behind the scenes scrambling than people realize. How does Alabama do it, right? How does, he's been with Kalen DeBoer for 4 seasons now, has kind of got an up close look at, how does this very highly respected, coveted head coach manage an operation at 2 different programs. I think that's going to prove valuable. And to Ian's point, he should recruit like crazy. Recruited really well at Washington. I think everybody recruits well at Alabama. But I mean, just the kind of guy who, like, if you don't have a favorite school and Coach Shep locks in on you and makes clear he wants you, like, I don't know how you say no to that guy. I don't know how you don't want to go work for that guy, play football, sure, but like as a leader, as a boss, like that's the kind of guy you want to be around. Will it work? I don't know. Will he win? I don't know. I mean, it's just dependent on so many different things. I think he'll get players. I think Oregon State's investment and brand relative to the new Pac-12 is certainly upper half. Are they going to be on a level with Boise State in terms of the resources and the support behind their program? Is Washington State going to enter that conversation? San Diego State's got things going for it. I don't think it's as clear cut as like, hey, the 2 legacy Pac-12 schools are just going to dominate this league. But I think the energy, the enthusiasm, the work ethic, he's only 42 years old. He's got room and time to grow into that job. I won't ruin the good vibes for Oregon State right now by talking about what success there could mean for them and for his future. He does strike me as the kind of guy who could be happy winning in Corvallis. But he's also very ambitious. So, who knows what the future holds. I think it's a dynamite hire. I give Oregon State props for like not getting stuck in the line of like, we need a head coach. We need a sitting head coach. I think they hired the guy. Like he said, I know there's other people who want this job, but I want it worse. Like, I think that means something. He really wanted that job. He wanted to be there. I read John Canzano's column. He's written a few really good things about this hire, but he called Canzano early in the process, like before he got an interview, to ask about Oregon State and ask about the job and like, what do you think? And do I have a shot? And what should I know? And like, I think that shows a considerable amount of foresight and gumption that like, it's not just, hey, here's an opening and my agent says that I could get an interview and this is like a logical next step for me. It's like, ooh, Oregon State. Yes, I want to go after that. Let me do everything in my power to go get it. I think that speaks volumes. I don't think that's how every coaching hire happens anymore.
It's how you get jobs. Like I would say that the learning about where you're going, where you think you'll be a fit, where you want to be a fit. I think that those sort of things really matter when it comes to will something work, especially at a place where you're basically blazing a new trail. You're not sure what the actual expectations are. You're not sure in totally what's possible. And I've always felt that when you hear about guys that really sort of take the time to look into, is this the right fit for me, rather than this is what is the next step in my progression. Like that's where you find things that really work, where someone who sees it as more than just a professional opportunity, but looks into how can I make the most out of this? How do I determine if this is the right thing for me? I'm rooting for him. I have generally always had an affection for the Beefs. I think everybody does. Like the one team that I guess Oregon fans don't like them, but that's about it. Doesn't everybody generally like Oregon State?
I think Washington State is learning to dislike them.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's always the like brotherhood of, hey, we got left behind.
Yeah.
We had to fight together to put the conference back together. So like, there's always going to be a kinship that way. But I do think that's kind of their new biggest in-conference rival. It's never going to be like the Apple Cup. I don't think there's hatred there.
Yeah.
But, like Oregon State is good enough, often enough to be like pretty annoying if you don't beat them.
Yeah.
Reeser's a really tough place to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's JaMarcus Shepard's last memory of Corvallis was that tough game in the pouring rain there in 2023 where Penix hits an out to Romo Dunze on third down to wrap it up. Where Washington did not play well, and it was I think Oregon State was a top 20 team at the time. They might have been favored. They were favored in that game. I remember that. Sold out, brand new Reeser Stadium. Like I'm sure he came away going, "Wow, that was a tough game. That was a tough place to play and a tough team." So, and he said something in his press conference that stood out to me, and that a loyal on Montlake subscriber pointed out in conversation the other day, that he said, this has always been looked at as like a blue collar job, but I don't really buy into that. I think that this is a place where we can like build an excellent football program and pursue excellence. Like it should be about excellence. It's not about owning some like, we're tough and we hit hard, but we might not always like win every game.
Are they going to get rid of the chainsaw then? I
don't know. You can't get rid of the chainsaw. Come on. He did talk about like one of the first things he said with the interview committee was like, God, I hate that chainsaw. I always hated that chainsaw, but that's why you want to keep it now that you're the head coach. Because what does the chainsaw mean? Well, it means that like if you're a visiting team, it means your offense just failed on second down, right?
Yep.
And you're about to face a tough third down with a loud crowd against what's usually not this year, but usually like a pretty decent Oregon State defense. So obviously they're going to embody blue collar traits because JaMarcus Shephard is a blue collar dude. He works really, really hard. He knows what it means to work hard for excellence and for greatness, and he's been around greatness. So, but I like that kind of like, no, like this isn't about, just being the thorn in someone's side and, oh, don't those guys try hard? Like, no, we're going to win at a high level here.
I'm rooting for him. You've seen when Oregon State, first with Mike Riley in his first go round and then with Dennis Erickson, like there was a significant boost of talent and people thought you couldn't win at that program. And then you got Oregon State trouncing Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl.
I will say, not that he thought needed to think for 1 second about this situation when making this decision. But when the buzz was Kalani Sitake to Penn State, I thought, I might like give a call to Jonathan Smith and wonder if the grass is necessarily greener at the bigger program. Like, I think Kalani Sitake is uniquely, not that he couldn't win elsewhere, but pretty uniquely suited to be at his best at BYU.
Yeah.
Just like I think Jonathan Smith is maybe uniquely suited to be at his best at Oregon State. And he could very well go get another head coaching job, probably not this cycle, but next cycle, and succeed and prove that wrong. But there's something to be said for finding a place that suits you and winning there and staying there. And maybe JaMarcus Shephard finds that at Oregon State. Maybe he doesn't. But I like the match for both coach and school. We're coming up on an hour and 10 minutes here, so we should probably wrap up with, do we want to knock out one last Pac-12 power rankings?
We should.
Oregon wins the regular season Pac-12 crown, going away. Got to honor Utah. At 2.
Utah at number 2. I think the first question becomes, is it USC or Arizona at 3?
Yeah, I mean, you like USC in that head-to-head matchup, but that's not necessarily what the rankings are about.
Yeah.
Arizona's feeling a hell of a lot better about itself.
9-3, beat Arizona State. Arizona State team that was a disappointment, then lost their quarterback. But yeah, I think I'm inclined to put Arizona number 3, USC number 4, but that just might be because I really don't like Lincoln Riley.
I can go with bumping Arizona up for just kind of rewarding them for getting to 9. And then, SC 4th.
Washington, Arizona State.
I'm going to say Washington 5.
I would agree.
ASU 6.
Yeah.
Cal 7.
Cal 7.
They kind of nice little win for Cal. Interim head coach Nick Rolovich. How about that?
Yeah. And then there were some people were saying, well, maybe he's going to be the permanent guy. I was like, nope. I cannot imagine that happening. No siree. And instead, it's Taj Lupoy.
Tosh Lupoy. How about that? You really can go home again. Wazoo 8th?
I think that sounds right.
I mean, those are the 8 bowl eligible teams.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Then you go, is it Stanford?
Stanford, and then
what they got?
Colorado.
Pritchard's their new full-time head coach. Right,
Tavita Pritchard, Clover Park High School alum. Yeah. Tavita Pritchard, author, as it were, of one of the greatest upsets in college football history.
Yeah,
the quarterback who felled the mighty USC Trojans in 2007.
Yes, sir.
With Richard Sherman playing receiver for Stanford that day, I believe.
Catching a critical touchdown pass.
And then, UCLA and Oregon State rounding out the bottom there.
Sounds right. Sounds good.
Oregon State had 1 FBS win.
Yeah. It could have been worse season. Not by much, but it could have been worse.
It could have been. They won 2 games. They could have lost all 12 of them.
We thought UCLA was going to go 0-for, and then they beat Penn State. That might have been of all the games, that's probably the game this year that surprised me the most.
Yeah, and Penn State wound up having a very strange season. And they got to a bowl game. They won 6.
Yes.
I want to say their only loss by more than 6 points was to Ohio State. They at no point were they a bad football team this year.
No.
Except for that day in Pasadena,
yes.
I guess you could say.
Yes.
Speaking of imagine you're Maryland. You're 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
You're up 20-0 on a Washington team that a lot of people probably thought would beat you early in the third quarter. And you're like, man, this team didn't even show up. Going to win this game. We're going to be 5-0. Got our stud freshman quarterback. We are rolling. And Washington came back and won that game, and Maryland did not win another game this season.
No, it was close loss to Nebraska, close loss to UCLA, and then the bottom dropped out. Absolute bottom dropped out on them.
Indicative, I suppose, of a team that is depending on a lot of young guys. And, they made the commitment to Mike Loxley to bring him back next year. So we'll see what they can get done in the portal and if they can hold on to those guys and everything. But, with what their defense was and like Malik Washington's development and everything, it kind of looked okay. Like Maryland might be a decent little team. This maybe they could win 7 or 8, especially if they hold on and beat Washington. Nope, lost 8 straight. Like, I guess that game hadn't.
They broke them.
Impact.
That's the way you phrase it. Washington broke Maryland. They just were not the same team after playing the Huskies.
With that said, I don't know that anybody gets to like take credit for breaking Maryland.
No.
They're kind of just Maryland.
Yeah.
Thanks to anybody listening everywhere.
Thanks to everybody listening everywhere.
Everybody listening everywhere. Thanks to Chuck Olson Kia and Husky Mobile for sponsoring today's show. T.I. Umu Kaisa's letter is in, Danny.
Thank goodness.
The Huskies are going to finish their signing class today. Wednesday, we'll find out their bowl destination on Sunday. I kind of feel like it's the LA Bowl.
Yep.
Which I think would be a little bit of a disappointment for Washington. Like, not because of the lacking prestige or whatever. I think if you're not in the playoff, it is what it is. But that game's December 13th. So they're really not going to get more than like 3 or 4 extra practices out of it, which I don't know why they're like, selfishly, I'm not complaining. I don't mind the early bowl game at all. But I think like, it's a little odd that one game is played so early that there's going to be 2 bowl teams that basically don't get any extra benefit from making a bowl game, which are the extra practices. So, but it is what it is. Maybe we'll get a surprise and they'll end up in the Holiday Bowl. I kind of think not. Seems like Arizona's destined for that. But regardless, we will talk to you next week.
See ya.